I'd like to tell you a little something about myself that not everyone knows. I mean, it's not something I especially want to say on stage because it's better suited for one-on-one conversation, but I'll say it anyway because it may bear some relevance to the introduction of this talk. Now, I'm colorblind. So if you ask me my favorite color, I don't have one. So fluorescent yellow and fluorescent green looks the same, and it's interesting to see how people respond to that. Almost immediately in their consternation, they find some object and say, "Can you see this? Can you see this?" And I'm like, dude, it's green, not invisible. So here the assumption is that I cannot see an object based on its color. Now, assumptions can make for some hilarious situations like these, but they can do far greater damage if they frame our conversation, our actions, and thus our reality. And the one that I find especially troublesome is the pervasive notion that our technology and our innovation must continually be imported. And the thing is, many other developing nations suffer from this idea. I've heard someone say on one occasion, let them make it, and then we'll buy it. Let them handle the big problems. And this parochial thinking is far from being grounded in reality. Because we have innovators of global renown, like Peter Minshall in the arts, who's aced the creative direction for 4 Olympic opening and closing ceremonies. And others like Professor John Negard, who's done incredible work in carbon sequestration and carbon emissions monitoring in Trinidad and Tobago. And when I see this is what drives me. This is what drives me because it's evidence that we're not just nice. We're not just nice people. We are smart, intelligent, and have a healthy ambition to affect the world. We are people who can dream big. We are people who can dream big, but not just dream big, but make big. So I'd like to tell you about a darling project of mine, and I call it darling because we've been at it for 3 years, and I'm starting to get results. It happens to be my PhD project, which I'm reading for in molecular genetics at the University of the West Indies. Now, the focus of this is big data-driven cancer diagnosis. Now, before I started, I didn't know a crix from a cummerbund as it related to big data science. The computer was a tool to read science articles and the occasional Japanese film, but when I heard about the work that my current supervisor was doing, I was intrigued, and I said, you know what, I have to volunteer for this. And after a few exchanges, and he saw that sincerely this boy is really interested in what I'm doing, so he offered me the opportunity to do my PhD with him in big data science. And the thing is, I was apprehensive because I didn't know much about it. But my innate curiosity wouldn't permit me to refuse. And today I'm happy to say I'm doing cancer research with an excellent team of 3. Now, cancer. Cancer is something that we are very familiar with, and it's probably as dear to our hearts as angina, because sadly, many of us know some that have suffered from this terrible disease, cancer. And unfortunately, too many of us know some that have succumbed to it. The thing is, I want to give you a sense of scale of this disease. 14 million new cases are diagnosed every year. And the thing is, 8 million die by the end of it. And I thought it'd be interesting to see how many people died as a result of wars post-World War II. The number, 6 million. 6 million. And just in the year 2012, 8 million people died of cancer. So clearly, this is a big, big problem. And I could understand why some people class it as a modern-day plague, and others don't understand it. But cancer is a genetic disease. It has causes from mutagens and chemical agents to viruses, as seen with the human papillomavirus. The thing is, with cancer, one of the biggest challenges that I've found is the problem with diagnosis. There are too many delays for people to get their results. They have to suffer long waits, and the samples need to be sent before the eyes of overseas specialists. And a series of scans and tests ensue that sum up in some seemingly arbitrary but foreboding countdown on your life. And you could just hear the death knells of the doctor saying, 3 months to live. And much of the patient's life is consumed in waiting for test results. Not to mention the stress that many argue can aggravate the disease, but the key loss here is time. Time for detection, time for diagnosis, time for evaluating treatment, time that could potentially save lives. And now I'm interested in reducing this time for diagnosis. Now I, along with my supervisor, my professor at the University of the West Indies, we've developed an algorithm that can reduce the diagnostic times from weeks to hours. From weeks, potentially, to hours. That's a 100-fold reduction. Now, it's interesting to see what's happening in genomics in the world today. It cost us, the planet, $2.7 billion to sequence the human genome. Today, it costs us $1,000 and less to do the same work. It suggests that these techniques are going to become more ubiquitous and used to treat patients very, very near in the future. So I know some of us would want to know how this might work. So first, we collect the cancer cells. We collect biopsy, or circulating tumor cells. And then we separate the cells into healthy and cancerous. The healthy cells and the cancerous ones. And then we sequence the DNA between the two of them, the healthy and the cancerous, then compare them. And that gives us a sense of what genes are mutated in the sample. And then we use a computational method in order to classify or determine the cancer that the patient has. I'll use the word very loosely, diagnosis. And this is the part that I'm working on. Now, I'll put it like this. It's like the first time you attend a family reunion and you sit with your favorite cousin trying to figure out whether the woman in the turquoise dress is Auntie Carol's daughter or her son's girlfriend. So, you look at facial features, how similar they are, the eyes, the nose, amongst other things, and then you make an educated guess. But now you want to know if your inference is correct. So you ask Auntie Carol, and it turns out it's her son's girlfriend. So just as you would use specific features in order to clarify or classify the relation, I've written code to teach the computer how to use specific gene features in order to classify a cancer sample. And some of the results that I thought was quite interesting. The algorithm was able to distinguish between 13 different types of cancer at over 80% accuracy. And 9 of these at 100%. Now, when I saw this, I thought, this is quite interesting. I took a step back. And then the other thing was that many of these cancers that I was able to do this for were some of the most common cancers in the world. Cancers of the lung, cancers of the colon, cancers of the kidneys, cancers of the endometrium, and even leukemias. And again, when I saw this, I was like, Willie's wigwams, this is incredible. And with a healthy dose of surprise and scientific scrutiny, I decided to do the thing over like 6 times. And sure enough, the results were consistent. It's funny, I had to present this in a research seminar sometime, And I had several people come up to me and ask, but really, who's helping you with this? Who's helping you from abroad? Who is? And I thought, is that a serious question? So here the assumption is that a Greenhorn graduate student and his supervisor, his professor, at the University of the West Indies in Trinidad and Tobago, mind you, couldn't conceive such a thing. Fortunately, I was asked what I deem a more pertinent question. It was, how does this compare to conventional methods? And how long does it take to get results? And I thought, okay, that is a question I can engage. So the algorithm that we wrote can do the classifications in a fraction of a second, in 6.67 milliseconds. Now, typically, to get results for a sample, best case scenario in the US, it takes about 2 days. 2 days. In that same time, a computational method, like ours, can classify as many as 26 million samples. And the thing is, this shows that genomics and informatics are going to revolutionize the way we approach cancer care, the way we approach healthcare. Now, apart from the reduction in time, this also has huge implications for screening. Used in tandem with emerging experimental techniques, we can find lung and colon and cervical cancer well before the symptoms manifest. For instance, triple-negative breast cancer, which is a type of breast cancer that's especially deadly in women of African descent. Now, it's difficult to treat because it doesn't have the same cellular markers that you'd find in other types of breast cancer. And on top of that, it takes several tests in order to diagnose. Now, with our method, in one test, it can classify a sample with 87.5% accuracy. Now, it's not perfect, but it's relevant to us. It's relevant to us and many other countries worldwide in a single test rather than several. It's now more possible to find this cancer early and avoid ineffective treatment regimes. And that's a powerful thing. Now, another cancer is colon cancer, which is the third most common cancer in the world. If it's found early, the 5-year survival rate can be as high as 90%, compared to 53% if it's found late. And this is evidence that things are changing in the world and that we can be a part of it. Cancer care seems not too far off, personal cancer care. So we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean and by extension the developing world, we can make contributions and improve healthcare for the world's citizens now more than ever before. So engage the incredible. My story started from a hapless encounter with a brilliant professor at the University of the West Indies and landed me in a place that I hardly imagined possible. So whatever the challenge, whatever the problem, dream big, but above all, dare to make big. Thank you.